Okay, so how not to die. Obviously, a very interesting name for a panel. And I think a few years ago, people would laugh at it. But now we're essentially in a health boom where we're seeing more tech, more supplements than ever before. And Dave, I'm going to start with you because you've been at the forefront of this biohacking world. I mean, just check out his shoes.
Oh, geez.
And you claim you figured out a way to live to 180. Tell us about that.
It turns out that we know we can do 120 years old today because we've seen it happen, and we know more about the mechanisms of aging than ever before. And aging is death by 1,000 cuts. It's what's going on in your gut, what's going on in distributed networks throughout your body. We didn't know this 5, 10, 20, 30 years ago, so we can take action with the data that we're gathering now, which moves the age where you're going to basically be very, very decrepit before you die, which is the picture we all have. That's an old picture. The new picture is that you can be vibrant and young, well into your late 80s, even now. I'm 45. That means I've got, if my goals are right, about 135 more years of innovation and disruption. Go back 80 years, look what we knew. So I'm counting on a 50% boost over what we can do today over the next 80 years, and it's not even an aggressive bet. It's a conservative bet. And I think that many people in the room today have the opportunity to live that long if you just take control of your own biology and you make it do what you want. And that's the definition of biohacking. Change the environment around you and inside of you so you have control of your biology and you can have a better brain, you can look the way you want, or you can just live a very long time and have a ton of energy, which is the goal.
Naveen, out to you. You've been a serial entrepreneur, making a significant amount of money in the tech boom. But now you say you can end chronic diseases, that illness and sickness is truly optional. How so?
So what's really happening is for the first time in the human history, we're finally starting to understand what's happening inside our human body. We understand every gene that's being expressed, and we're finally able to understand biochemically, microbially, everything that's going on. And for the first time, we are able to apply AI and machine learning to be able to go back and saying, what causes aging? What makes us old? Aging is a chronic disease, and there is no doubt in my mind, we will be the generation that will be known for ending a chronic disease. So if you have any loved one ever who has suffered from a chronic disease, now is the time we're going to take charge and make sure not a person dies from cancer, not a person dies from heart disease, not a person is going to die from any of the diabetes or autoimmune diseases. These are the diseases that are simply the chronic inflammation diseases, and we are going to fix it. And our generation will be the generation that will be known for having done that. And to me, what's really exciting is Dave is an absolutely unambitious person when he talks about 180 years. We are going to absolutely escape the life velocity. And what I mean by that is, in the next 10 to 15 years, we will be able to find a way to live additional 30 or 50 years. And every year after that, we're going to go out and find a way to live healthy another 5 or 10 years. We're going to escape the velocity where we will be able to live as long as we want and absolutely stay healthy as if we are still in our 20s. Because we will know exactly what it means. We can rejuvenate our organs through stem cells. We'll be able to repair our body. We'll be able to 3D print our own organs. And we're going to be living as a 20-year-old for as long as we want.
Jeez. So Mona, the only doctor on the stage, are these guys crazy or are they on to something?
A little bit of both. So I think my premise would be that we as a society as a whole are probably just tired of getting over-medicated, right? The way in which we practice healthcare for so long has been about how do we fix something once it goes wrong, rather than how do we think about preventing disease before it's even on the radar. And so you think about the entire healthcare system, the way that's structured. You think about the way in which medical education is structured, where we spend, the second year of medical school is really all about learning about the different drugs. It's in service of the pharmaceutical industry rather than in the wellness industry. And so there is a fundamental shift, I think, that has to happen over time, where we start to think about how do we embed wellness and health in the way in which we approach taking care of ourselves. I would say that I think as this trend is emerging, and the reason I call it a trend is that I think there are fundamental access issues that we aren't talking about, right? So precision medicine, this is what we're talking about here, is only as good as the impact it has on some of the most vulnerable patients and the most vulnerable in our population. For those of us in this room, I think we have all of the access that we could hope for, and the information that folks like these are providing for the potential pathways for how we could start to address these concerns. If you think about those who are most vulnerable, who don't have access to this information, how is precision medicine actually impacting their lives? How is it changing the course of their disease? We know from recent reports that the longevity gap is increasing, right? So people who are economically privileged compared to people who are not, that gap in lifespan is actually increasing over time among those people. That is in direct opposition to the promise of precision medicine, and I think we have to have a really fundamental conversation around access and how we create a level playing field from precision medicine for the population as a whole.
Yeah. So, while there is more health data and technology out there, Americans are still fatter and sicker than ever before. And speaking of life expectancy, it's declined the last 2 years. Who do you blame for that, Dave?
I'd like to blame big food. This idea that your environment programs your genes to turn things on and off like inflammation. It programs your gut bacteria. The number one environmental thing that made me fat when I weighed 300 pounds was what I was putting in my mouth. And worst of all, I was doing what was supposed to be healthy. I was eating lots of whole grains and lots of margarine, because that's supposed to somehow be good for you compared to fats that are present in your body normally. And the problem is that this came from data that was actually taught in medical schools. And what I've learned in my quest to not die is that one of the ways to not die is to stay the hell away from the medical system as long as you can.
So it's interesting.
Mona, are people losing their trust in doctors and even in the government to give them the correct healthcare advice?
So, I will actually say that I do think our medical education system, and I might be an outlier here, the way it's currently structured is not in service of health and wellness. I would absolutely agree. When I was a medical student looking back, I was taught more about pharmaceuticals than I was about nutrition. I think that is an absolute fundamental flaw in our system. The fact that through nutrition you can reverse stage 4 heart failure is something I never knew until after I left medical school. And I think that, to your point, Dave, I would agree. I wouldn't say completely stay away from the medical system, but I do think that we need to question some of the values on which it's based.
It's interesting. As an entrepreneur, I spend more per employee every month giving them Bulletproof products than I do on their health insurance, because I think the ROI is higher when people have quality food, when they're eating things that give them and their family enough energy and don't give them inflammation and all of that. And I think a lot of employers are reaching that point. You see companies like Google and pretty much every other tech company bringing in good quality food, not just because people stay at work longer, but because they're actually more productive when they get good food and because their healthcare costs go down, this whole employee wellness thing. The problem is we don't get to see the results of that except inside these companies. But you have the data set, Mona, that no one else has across all of these things to see, okay, what happens when people shop more at a Whole Foods, or what happens when you end up introducing these in an employee setting. And what we're going to find now using machine learning and AI is these huge things we're doing that are completely backwards, that we've always thought were right, and the data is going to show they were totally wrong. And that's the classic definition of disruption.
And one of the interesting things I find is that there is no other system. The more money you spend, the worse it gets. That's our healthcare system, where our pharmaceutical companies have become the parasite on humanity. Their whole job is to keep you sick because their business model depends on keeping you sick. They love the chronic diseases because that's how they get the subscription business, right? Now imagine every single chronic disease. And you don't need to take my word for it. Just Google Parkinson's and the microbiome, Alzheimer's and microbiome, depression, anxiety, cancer, autoimmune diseases, obesity and diabetes. Every chronic disease starts with a chronic inflammation, and the chronic inflammation starts because your gut is not in balance. It is not a new science. 2,400 years ago, Hippocrates says all diseases begin in the gut. One man's food is another man's poison. Let food be thy medicine. Let thy medicine be the food. Where have we gone wrong? Where you have to take a Nexium, where you have to take a cholesterol, Lipitor for cholesterol. Imagine that, because these guys are pushing the poison on the humans, and we have to stop this. Essentially, for the first time, we have a choice. The illness can be optional, and I can tell you why. We understanding finally that there is no such thing as healthy food. It is healthy for you or not healthy for you. It's not about if spinach is good. Is spinach good for you or bad for you? So what we do is, we started this company that came out of the biodefense work, where the whole purpose was to understand what is going on inside the human body in case something bad happens. And now we use that technology to keep you healthy. We are able to look at every enzyme produced in your gut. We know whether it is a butyrate. We know you're producing LPS that's going to cause inflammation. And then we can, in fact, tell you, should you be eating spinach or kale, or should you be eating actually the bread and the wheat and the whole grains, or what is good or bad. It turns out for me, I thought I was eating healthy. I was eating spinach, oats, no carb, no starch, and I was gaining weight and my blood glucose was going up. And when I did my own test through Viome, it turns out that I need to be avoiding spinach, avoiding all the things, and eating more carbs. And when I started eating more carbs, guess what? I lost weight and my blood glucose went down. For the first time, we are starting to do the personalized medicine. And you know the reason it works for you? Because we are already personalizing it every day when we eat food. We make choices. You don't need to have a precision drug that's designed for each individual. All we have to do is eat what's right for you. And the things that's good for you today won't be good for you 3 or 4 months, because your body is constantly adapting and changing. So if you're not going to be the CEO of your own health, you're going to be victimized. And our healthcare system is a perfect example of how they're going to continue to victimize you. So come join me today, make a pledge that we are going to take the healthcare in our own hands, and we're not going to allow the pharmaceutical companies to essentially be a parasite on us. Say yay.
No, and speaking of diet, go ahead, Mona, if you'd like.
Go ahead.
No, speaking of diets, I think we're all bombarded with vegan, paleo. Like, what diet actually works? If you say it's not our genes, if it's truly food, how do we figure it out for people who can't afford to take your test, or who can spend a lot of money to biohack themselves?
Can I add something here? I think, yes, there are certainly foods that are specific to our bodies that we're going to be responding better to. But there are some foods that are crappy for all of us, right?
Yeah. Sure.
Potato chips are bad across the board. We don't need any testing to tell us that. There are some basic fundamentals that we are not doing right now as a society, right? There are behavioral things that we are not embracing. And so a lot of the reasons why some of these conditions are developing, we don't need big data to understand why they're developing. They're developing because we're eating processed foods. We're eating more food out of a box than we are from a garden. And we don't need a big data platform to be able to see that. And we don't need a lot of expensive tests to be able to figure that out. I would say that we as a population need to start to take some level of personal responsibility for our health, even before we go looking for expensive solutions.
But Mona, this is not
to address
expensive.
it.
That's the thing is, these things used to cost tens of thousands of dollars. Now, within a year, now they are to hundreds of dollars. Now it's going to be tens of dollars, because they are on an exponential curve. The cost of understanding what's happening inside your body and your gene expression, it's no longer thousands. It is 100. Yeah. Now it's going to be down to tens of dollars, and it's going to be free. And here's why it's going to be free. Because the technology is on that curve, just like the cell phones came out, and now everybody has them. So you have to believe the more people who join the revolution, that brings the cost down. And everybody, the billions and billions of people around the world, are going to benefit from it. Of course, you need to avoid the bad food, but what is good is not known. Everybody knows what happens when you eat bad food, but nobody knows what's good for you. And
I will say that I think the trend from the cost perspective is absolutely what we need. The other thing, though, I will just say as a provider is that most patients, unlike a lot of people in this room, most people don't want to think about their health until they have to think about their health, right? And so how do you start to get people to proactively investigate what is good for them before they're forced to investigate it? That is a core part of the difficulty in trying to address some of these chronic conditions for patients, is that they don't want to think about it.
It's a language problem. And when you tell people, oh, do you want to be healthy? Who woke up in the morning and said, I want to be really healthy today? Now, we wake up, we say, we want to kick ass today. Like, I want to do something meaningful. And you will never excite anyone about health unless they're really sick. And you'll never excite anyone about anti-aging unless they're really old. But both health and not dying start in your mom's womb. And they continue from that point forward. And you have more leverage when you're born than you do when you're 1 year old, than when you're 10, than when you're 20, than when you're 100. And so what we want to do is build an environment, build a society, build a food supply that gives us those foods and gives us the knowledge, like Naveen's talking about, that says, hey, this thing might be really good for this person, but for you it's not. And I found that out just in the course of writing the Bulletproof Diet. Nightshade vegetables, for about a quarter of people, they cause rheumatoid arthritis. This would be like chili peppers and bell peppers and potatoes. So they're really healthy for one class of people. They're kryptonite for another one. And if you don't know, and you've been eating that every day, you just think you're healthy, but you're actually walking around running at 60% of what you're capable of. And this idea you're capable of more, and that your food is the way you plug into that, is what excites everyone, not just sick people.
But I think that one of the things is that most people don't know, we as humans, we are more foreign cells in our body than human cells. When you look at the number of genes that are expressed in our body, our human DNA only expresses 20,000 genes. And the gut bacteria in our gut produce somewhere between 2 million to 20 million genes. Think about it. We are less than 1% human. Not only we are in the symbiotic relationship, as a matter of fact, our bacteria are our boss. They control everything that we do. Just yesterday, there was an article published in Nature that our gut bacteria controls our behavior, our mind. And they live to a large extent. They are the puppet masters. We are simply the puppet. We are evolved to take care of them. And they make us crave what they want. They make us do what they want. And as a matter of fact, when you look at the gut bacteria, they're talking to your mitochondria, Dave, that you did not talk about. Mitochondria is an ancient bacteria inside the human cells. And as we age, we're constantly communicating the mitochondria and the microbiome. And once you understand that we are mostly microbial, if we don't take care of them, we fall sick. Aging is a chronic disease, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to cure that chronic disease also, so that we never age.
Okay, so I just want to wrap things up because we only have a short amount of time, but no, I love it. Dave, my question is for the people in the audience who are interested in, looking younger. You even say you improved your IQ by 20 points, and Lord knows I need to do that. What is your...
No, you don't. God forbid if you increase your IQ by 20 points.
I know, right? What's your budget guide for people who are looking to dabble in this world, who can't spend a lot of money?
Well, I started when I was 20, using 20% of my income post-tax on hacking my biology. Because what's a higher ROI than living many more years or having a lot more energy or not swearing at someone you shouldn't swear at because you actually had all of your energy instead of being tired and cranky in a board meeting? And I've done that whether or not I had money or not. And sometimes it's, okay, I'm just out of college, but what am I going to do? It helps that I had all the diseases of aging by the time I was 25, like pre-diabetes, 300 pounds, high risk of stroke and heart disease, and cognitive dysfunction. So I had to hack that because I was really sick. But once I learned I could do that, I'm performing better now at 45 than I have in my entire life. And it keeps getting better.
Yeah. For people who don't know, Naveen, you've worked yourself all the way to the Billionaires Club. Why are you here? You don't need to be here.
Again, the reason I'm here, Jade, is because this is my way of giving back. I grew up very poor. I had no food to eat. I came to this country with absolutely nothing. God has been kind to me. The society has given me so much. And I know the only way I can pay back my debt is to give it back to the society by doing things that I can do to move the society forward. And my mission is to absolutely make chronic illness optional. well. And once I fix this issue, I'm going to go out and fix the education. I'm 58. I don't need to be doing it. But I guess, tell you what, I give you my word. We're going to fix healthcare and we're going to fix education next. We're going to fix the water. We're going to fix the agriculture. And we're going to create an abundance of everything that we care about. There's never going to be any scarcity for anyone. We're going to have abundance of food. It's going to be like next air. Everybody's going to have it. It's going to be free. Water is going to be the next air. Energy is going to be the next air. Everybody's going to have it and nobody's going to pay for it. So we go out, we work together, and we're going to solve this problem.
Yeah. All right, guys, we're over time. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you very much.